Hey, good morning to the Neighborhood Church. Thanks for joining here this morning, and thanks for joining us for those of you online. I wanted to start this morning just with quick introductions. We know many of you, but we also know that there's some in here that we don't yet know. My name's Ben Bowers. I'm leader of the Global Missions team here at the Neighborhood Church, and this is my wife, Taylor. We've been married for the past 8 years.
That's right. We have our son, Will, who's 6 years old. He's watching online this morning with his grandpa. And we've been with the Neighborhood Church right over about 5 years and have led Global Mission that whole time. So you would think when we first joined the church and Joe asked us to lead Global Mission that we probably had a ton of maybe mission experience before. And that probably wasn't the case. So Ben, you want to kind of talk them through how we got on our mission journey?
Sure, absolutely. So as Taylor mentioned, we started really humbly, actually. Our first mission trip, we didn't go as leaders. We went as participants. And we had just started, attending some services here at the Neighborhood Church, not yet members, but started hearing a lot about the mission work that the church was just starting on, the mission journey that the church was starting on in Guatemala. And we felt kind of called and compelled at that time to go and serve for the very first time. And neither of us had ever been missionaries in the past. We had never done even short-term mission. We'd really only done a few, things within the church locally. And so this was really our first kind of introduction to mission. And we went and experienced Guatemala that first year and really just fell in love with the entire experience. We fell in love with serving those outside of our country, much less fortunate than ourselves, and we fell in love with serving together as well. And so we came back from that experience and we started talking about, one, joining this church that we fell in love with and that we developed a lot of relationships with while overseas on mission. And just like, Pastor Joe typically does, when you go to him and you talk about joining the church, he also talks about how we're going to serve in the church. And he really had a heart for us to serve by leading mission and becoming part of the Global Missions leadership team. And so we went back and we spent a couple of weeks talking about it and praying about it, and came back and accepted that call to become part of the leadership team. And the Guatemala mission grew over the course of a couple of years and grew quite quickly. We were taking at the time almost a third of the church with us back when the church was still relatively small, and taking a lot of folks on mission. And actually, fortunately for us, a well-timed ELCA youth gathering gave us the opportunity to seed mission a little differently. And we started thinking about, we weren't going to bring a massive group overseas because a lot of the youth were going on to the ELC youth gathering. And so we decided that we would start looking at exploratory mission options. And Taylor and I were asked to really start to explore options in Asia. And we spent months, literally months, researching different options and trying to find a mission partner in Asia that was similar to the experience that we had in Guatemala, where primarily led full-time by a based organization in country, and then we can kind of plug into that and lead short-term mission and engage with our church over a longer period and a longer relationship. And we were finding it really difficult to actually find that same type of relationship and experience in Asia.
Well, part of that difficulty, right, was also trying to figure out, God's call for us, right? I think as you kind of are kind of going on any kind of mission, you're always trying to say, is this really what God has me called for? Or is there something that I want for a certain reason? And so as we were kind of going through Asia, right, there was a few ways that we were trying to say, is this really where God's calling us? Or is this just, we love traveling to Asia, so that's where we want to go? And really trying to look for God's assurances in that and pray through that. And so there was one night, right, where that kind of sticks out in my mind as kind of being the turning point of where we started to see God's assurances in our call to Asia. And so, Ben, you want to talk us through that?
So at the time, we were focusing a lot of our effort in China, where I was doing a lot of work personally outside of the church. And we had other mission leaders in our mission team that had experience actually working in countries like Thailand. And so we were looking to try and find connections to mission work in Thailand and other places that we thought would also be great connecting other members of the church with and generate a lot of interest in doing mission in that part of the world. And there's not really a whole lot of information online in our language about mission work going on in Asia, because it's all directed at people on that side of the world and people within those countries. And so there's not a lot of content in English either. But I came across one night, just as Taylor and I were going to bed, I came across a website that basically had a summary of some of the work that the Lutheran Church of Australia and the Singapore Church were doing in Cambodia, a country that neither of us had even looked at. And Taylor fell asleep, and I kept reading on, and I came to find out about a pastor in Cambodia, Reverend Daniel Orn. And he was actually the first Cambodian ordained in the Lutheran Church by those two mission plants. And he was now running a network of churches in Cambodia and growing exponentially, very rapidly in these small towns and communities around Cambodia. And I felt compelled at the time to just reach out. And it was 2 a.m. our time, and I knew he was going to be up and around. And I sent an email to him that night without even talking to Taylor about it. And by the next morning, had already received a response back. And he shared with me the news that he was actually already partnering with American churches as well. And he mentioned the ELCA in his response. And for those that don't know, the ELCA is actually our parent church here at the neighborhood church. And they were, because, the ELCA has, they have a real heart in food ministries. And there's a lot of feeding efforts going on in Cambodia while telling the story of Jesus Christ and Christianity. And the ELCA was actually already partnering with Reverend Daniel Orn and the work being done in Cambodia to kind of help drive their mission work forward. And right away, we took that as an absolute assurance and just an incredible sign that this is where God is leading us. This is where we really need to be speaking and engaging and looking to grow a mission. And so we started that first year with a commitment to Reverend Daniel Orn that we would come and do exploratory mission in Cambodia and represent the neighborhood church in that effort.
Yeah, and that was pretty much all done in that one night. So if Ben is the side of our relationship who's big picture, gets excited, I'm on the other side with a little bit more like fear, anxiety. So he wakes up super excited to tell me everything. I've already got a note back, and they're already partnered with the LCA. And I'm like, all the what ifs, all the anxieties, all the fears. And I'm like, wait, what? We're not partnering with a mission organization that's going to figure out all the details for us? Like all of those fear and anxieties, which I think can happen whether you're going to lead a mission to a new country or you're just saying yes to one that's already set up, or you're saying yes to even do a local mission here, right? Because you might kind of have the unknown of what's coming up. And so I want to flip us to our first verse for this morning.
There you go.
I got it. Make sure. So we are at Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. And it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And so I think that, within my own faith, and Ben had to kind of remind me back, and as we talked with Joe about the mission trip, we kind of had to come back and say, as all of these fears and anxieties came up, we had to come back and say, hey, we got to put our trust in God, right? We got to have faith and prayer and know that all those details, right? The right things to be thinking through to make sure we don't miss something, right? But we've had these reassurances, partnering with Daniel Orn, the willingness to want us to come and help them, the partnership with the ELCA. And so just knowing that we're, follow God's call. Don't let those kind of fears and anxieties stop us from saying yes. And so we brought our first group in 2018. I want to bring up the pictures from our first year so you can kind of see what some of the work we were doing there. And that first year was exploratory. So we were just kind of partnering to see what they've already were working on and how we could help partner with them in the future years. So here you can see one of the ladies from the church. We went to the market there to grab fresh fruits and vegetables. I can confirm for Pastor Joe that there were eggs there at the market. Mm-hmm. And then if the next picture is, so we actually take that food, go back and prepare a meal, and then take it to the local village to feed all the kids in the day. And so the kids are there washing their hands. And then the next picture, they line up and get their trays. And there's Miss Roseanne's giving them a scoop of rice with their meal. And then the next picture, they were also doing English classes at the time. And so you can see after she cooks the meal, she comes back and teaches English classes. And so we were kind of observing. We'd get in and help with a little bit of the English classes. But we had to establish that relationship, and that way they knew we would come back and continue to, actually work with them and partner with them. They were used to mission partners that maybe sent money over but didn't come and actually do mission work. And And so as we led into year 2, we went off that. As Ben mentioned, we committed that, hey, we want to come back and work with this organization for 3 years. And they said, that's great. We have lots of ideas of how you can help us. And we were kind of like, okay, we thought we'd come back and help you with the same stuff we already did, like prep meals and teach English classes. And they were like, we want you to lead a VBS. We were like, okay, we've kind of led a VBS in Guatemala, so we got experience. They're like, no, we want you to put all the materials together and be the leaders, like the full week. And we were like, okay, like we can maybe find some people that can do that. And they were like, we want to build a school. We're like, we've built houses. You guys have heard from the missions before in Guatemala. We built the houses in Guatemala, so we're used to that. But there, we have Next Step, who's the partnering organization. They make sure the materials are there. They organize the masons that are going to come.
They've already picked the site.
They've already picked the site and how it's the design of it.
Yeah.
That was on us this time, right? So all of those fears and anxieties, Ben's like, that's great, we can do this. And I'm like, what if? How do we do this? How are the materials going to get there? How are we going to get money over halfway across the world to make sure they can buy it in time? Like, I don't want to have people sign up for a mission trip and we get there and there's nothing to do. And I think that's just one of those, I go back to that Philippians verse of, really relying on God. If you are sure in his reassurances that this is where he's calling you, any kind of mission work that, we were sure that we were supposed to be in Cambodia and doing this work, then it makes it a lot easier, right? I think those are good. They kind of prep me, right? But knowing that I can't let that stop me from saying yes to the work that God has called us to. And so if we pull up year 2 pictures, here is the VBS. I think if I was nervous that we were going to do all this prep and work and kids weren't going to show up for VBS, this picture shows different. We probably had about 20, 25 show up that first day and had it all the way. Our highest number was up to 70 kids. And they came with energy. They came about 2 hours early, ready to go. And the next picture shows the kids super excited to receive some art pack supplies that we brought with them. And so when you go there and you continue to see God's reassurances when you show up, right? And he provides. He brought the kids in to run VBS. The next picture shows a youth night, which is also kind of another scary. As you have youth kids, are they going to show up when they're that teenage group? We had about 20, 25 there for a barbecue that night. So just some really great work. So where it was all of those kind of any mission work that we'd done before, I feel like Cambodia pushed us outside of our comfort zone, something that we like to do here at the neighborhood church, right? And God showed through. The next 2 pictures is of our build site. So this is actually the school that we built in a local village. You can see our 3 masons.
It helped having Matthew there, that as tall as he is. We didn't have a ladder on site for most days, so it helps having a tall person to also get called to mission as well every once in a while.
You can see Matthew here in the next picture, just working with Pastor Straley, who's there learning how to split bamboo, right, for the piece. So that's all I'd say is like these pictures mean so much to me, just seeing the work that we can do there. But really the path is whatever your mission work is, God's going to reassure you, right, and take any of those fears and anxieties to him. And I think this last picture, Ben.
Yeah, so this is on our last day of the build, and you can see most of the construction work is done. We can actually host school now in Cambodia and have done so for the past 2 years since going on this mission. So feel really blessed by that. And we continue to actually get stories back from the Lutheran Church of Cambodia and get pictures and videos of the kids that are worshiping there on Sunday for Sunday school, but also going to school there throughout the week to learn English and other skills. And you can see how much work is involved, but how much of a blessing it is to see that mission work complete throughout the week. That's another thing we really try and do is we try and complete things so that we can see that through. You can also see on there. I mean, we're kind of sweaty. We're pretty dirty. We don't go in the hottest time of the year to Cambodia. We don't go in the wet season. But it is still really warm. We're like a bunch of sweaty ibises up there. Having finished the week. But honestly, the build site, we found out, was the easier of the 2 sites. The folks that were running VBS had an incredible task in front of them. They had to bring the energy all day long for, almost 6 or 7 hours throughout the day.
Those kids had a lot of energy.
Unbelievable. So I feel like I kind of had it easy being on the build site that particular year, but look forward to going back and running VBS because I feel like that'll be a pretty exciting experience as well. So you can actually see, we talk a lot about relationship in the church, and that's what's incredibly fulfilling is the relationships that we build and the work that we get to see through. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 25 says, A generous person will prosper, but whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. And that's exactly what happens. We come back incredibly fulfilled in our mission purpose, incredibly fulfilled in the work that we've done, and we build year over year on those relationships. And relationships is what makes mission, continue, in my opinion. It's a fulfilling and rewarding in 1,000 different ways, but relationship is the one that, to me, sits closest to me. And in year 2, it's incredibly exciting because you have the anniversary relationships. So the people that you develop relationships with in year 1, you come back and see them again. They're like family. It's been a whole year since you saw them. So there's this whole anniversary event that occurs. You're building relationship with kids that you saw from the previous year and that sort of thing. But then the entire experience is new and unique for year 2 as well. And every mission trip is like that. I want to go through and share some pictures too, some of the relationships that were built along the way. Here you see Olivia with the kids. They completely attached to her and to those that were leading VBS that week. And that's a big part of what continued to grow VBS throughout the week was the energy that they brought. Up next, you can also see the leadership team there in Cruz Village, the Lutheran Church Cambodia that we served at. And you can see the team. This is the team that went in year 2. And just unbelievable experience. You can actually observe faith and relationships grow throughout the time. This is a bond that we have with the leadership team and with those that we served with that can never be, quite honestly, broken. And we'll continue to talk with those that we've been on mission with and engage with those that we've been on mission with, lean on those that we've been on mission with in the past for countless years afterwards. And so that's another kind of unique experience. I want to go back next to year 1. This is the year that we seeded mission in Cambodia. You can see us there kind of celebrating the week in Angkor Wat. Some really old temples that we drove to after we finished our mission work and got to experience that. And then lastly, a picture of my wife and I at a sunrise visit to Angkor Wat. And this is, you can see a lot come out of relationships. But when you get to serve next to your family, we've seen mothers serve with sons, mothers serve with daughters, fathers serve with their children. We've seen, we've experienced this firsthand ourselves, serving next to one another. It's helped us grow our relationship tremendously over the years. And then also individuals that come and serve bring back unique testimonials and experiences that they share with the church and they share with their family. And that's what's so great about mission is the relationships that are built along the way. And many, including us, don't start with, a huge leap into mission. We didn't move our family overseas and commit to mission. We started small and we built along the way. Matthew chapter 13, verses 31 through 32 says, "He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest seed of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches."
Yeah, and I think that's great. When we think through this mustard seed, right, we've heard Pastor Joe give lots of sermons on the smallest of faith and where that can lead. And I think on mission, right, your own faith grows exponentially on those mission trips, as well as what we kind of want to do here is that it's the smallest of steps to mission that can grow, right? For us, it was just saying yes to that first mission trip. And it can be anything. It can be in helping to fill a daily slot to fill up the free pantry outside. It could be serving locally in one of the life groups that we have here. There's always mission work locally here that you can sign up for, or volunteering here at the church, right? It's saying yes to that first step. I think we all know kind of, as I look back over the last several weeks, and we've been talking about mission, right, for 6 weeks now, it's as much as we would love maybe at some point to move our family over to Africa like Jared did, it's hard to see that and think, oh, well, that could be us, right? But what can be you is finding where God's calling you now, right? Going back to those first verses of taking to him in prayer any fears, anxieties, figuring out where he's calling you to serve and saying yes with a small step. And as you start to say yes to those, your relationships start to build, your relationship with God starts to build, those here at the church, so that way you can help support. Some of those relationships on those mission trips are the strongest that I have here at church, right? Because your faith grows so much while you're on mission trips that now I know if there is a time when I'm struggling, right, I have probably close to 60 plus people now that I've here in the church that I've gone on mission with, right? That I know I can go with because you're having those late night conversations. You're going on the mission. You're really here and you're kind of tested on your faith sometimes. And so our call to action at the end as we start to wrap up Cambodia, obviously a dear place in our hearts. And as we wrap up this, it's choose your own adventure. So while we've kind of given a glimpse into what our church has already done in Guatemala, what some of our long-term missionaries are doing, it's really finding your own adventure and saying yes to that call and just seeing where God takes you, knowing that it's going to build your relationships, it's going to grow your faith, and just being willing to say yes. So that's our call to action. I would really love it for, to take that back home with you, think about where God's calling you, especially as we kind of come out of this COVID time where maybe we've said no to a lot of things as we've kind of come back in. And so find now where God's, like, we know we're not going to be able to go to Cambodia at least until 2022, right? And so we're kind of having those same conversations of where's God calling us to right now, because we know that his vision for us is still to be out following his call to serve, right? And so find where yours is at. And I leave you with our verse that we like to say here at the neighborhood church. It's right over there on the wall. But if not you, who? If not now, when? Ben, you want to close us out in prayer?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Dear Heavenly and Gracious Father, we'd like to just thank you, first of all, for this opportunity to come together and worship as the neighborhood church and its family, both here and online. We thank you for this beautiful day and for the message. We ask that you speak to each individual that's listening today and put a seed in their heart and help fulfill in their mind what is their purpose and what is it that you're calling them to do and serve for the church and for those around you. We thank you for the relationships that we've built along the way, both here as well as overseas. We thank you too, and we're so thankful, and we ask that you continue to bless the mission work of those in Guatemala, in Cambodia and Uganda, and for those family members of ours at the neighborhood church that are also serving on long-term mission, both here and overseas. We ask that you just come into our hearts on this day and on every day and continue to speak to us and answer our call and help excite others about building relationship and serving and sharing the great word of Jesus and your mission, God. We ask all these things in your heavenly and precious name. And all God's people said, Amen.